treat all of us disrespectfully. And I also found out that I wasn't naturally so good at teaching. There are a lot of things I was very good at. Substituting in classrooms is a special talent. Raise your hand if you were good at that. There was a little old lady who lived down my block who was terrific as a sub. She would go in the classroom and all the kids got in order. She was small, about this tall. I don't know what it is she did, because when I walked in the room, they all got wilder. There's something in my face that made them know that I didn't know what I was doing. And that would be interesting to see what I did. And they got more and more outrageous. And twice I left the classroom and went to the principal and said, I think the children will be safer without me in the room. But I learned a lot. I mean, I learned how some classrooms had nothing but substitutes. And by the third month of school, the colleagues of the teacher who had left and not returned had managed to take everything of value out of the room. Books, pianos, whatever. Not out of meanness, but because everybody was short something, and nothing in that room belonged to anybody but the children. So when I got a call from a school across the street that they had an opening for a morning kindergarten teacher, I jumped at it. And it was the most breathtaking year and a half of my life, being a kindergarten teacher in Chicago South Side. Literally, intellectually, emotionally, socially. It was better than any course I'd ever taken at the University of Chicago, for sure. And the context of the school, all the circles within circles. The parents lived in the same neighborhood I did. My own kids were in that school. And the relationships between the faculty, the principal, we had actually quite an extraordinary principal. In Chicago, if you started off in the smallest school, and our school was quite small, and then every year you got transferred to a slightly larger school and more pay. And this was a man who wanted to be a high school principal. He knew nothing about young children. He wasn't interested in learning anything. What he was interested in doing was helping the faculty carry out their ideas. And he was a model for me in many ways of what a good principal could be. And that was just sheer luck that I happened to fall into such a school. But when I came to New York City and discovered that that school was exceptional, as I should have known, I knew that I could only remain a teacher if I could figure out some way to make schools respectful places for every member of that community. That trust is problematic. I want to talk about that. I mean, you know, I trust my best friend to save me my life, but I may not trust her to drive me across town. So, trust what? The guy who taught me to fly an airplane, yeah, imagine that, was such a dumb, stupid kid. But it happened, he knew how to fly. And it helped me to remember, don't think about his politics or his arrogance, just think about what he's telling you about flying an airplane. And I never became very good at it, quite frankly, but in any case. So trust is problematic. I think it's very important. I even wrote a book in Schools We Trust, but it's problematic, and we all have to figure out what it means at different times. And who to trust for what. And we have to teach our kids about who to trust for what, and how to get the most, even out of people you don't trust. But what is different is respect. I think respect doesn't have to be earned. Sounds funny, doesn't it? But I think the way we're raised and what surrounds us teaches us either to respect our fellow human beings, even as we oppose them, even as we fight them, to respect them, because we are all human beings. And at times we are all wrong, just plain wrong, and at times we're even plain selfish and mean. And still, That's the human condition. And every child's family in our school, and every colleague of mine needs to be respected. And it's hard to do, partly because we even have different ways of expressing respect. I come from a family in which arguing was a sign of respect. I mean, if you didn't argue, you were showing disrespect. My father would say outrageous things, and if we all said, yes, Papa, he would be furious. You know you don't agree. What? And then my mother told us a story about when my father's parents lived on the Lower East Side. She got sick of going Friday nights to visit her in-laws. And my father said to her, especially since they spent the whole evening, his father and he argued, he said, I'll take care of it this time. So whatever his father said, he said, I agree with you. You're right. That's a good point. And finally his father exploded and said, such disrespect from my oldest son. I never thought I'd live to see. I had to learn that other people didn't think that arguing with everything they said was a sign of respect. And it's helped me in my conversations with Diane. Diane Rowish and I were once really bitter enemies. We didn't know each other well. We had some common friends, but I wrote some very respectful, I believe, harsh critiques of some of her books. And she called me every name in the world. Some people told me, don't tangle with her. She and her husband are among the most powerful people in New York. And I got a little nervous, but I couldn't resist. Now, after all, 40 years later, she agrees with me. If she were here speaking, she might claim she had an influence on me, too, but we'll leave that for her. Now, before I say some of the things I had planned to say, this is a book of which everybody would keep by their bedside. It's called The Way We Were, written by a man I have enormous respect for, Richard Rothstein. And the reason I love it, I wish I could find some of the quotes, is that he takes us from about 1850 to whenever this book was written, and tells us what's wrong, what every generation thought was wrong with schools. And the marvelous thing about it is they always have exactly the same complaint, that they used to be well educated, and this generation isn't educated. In 1901, the New York Tribune said, all children expect these days is to be entertained. And teachers are promoting kids who can't even read an English sentence. And they did mean the English part. 1901 was a big period of immigration, and they had pretty bitter things, the average teacher in those days, to say about the unwashed new Americans. And every generation, around the same time, someone said that teachers weren't teaching kids to write a sentence. They didn't know where to put periods. They didn't know about capitals. And this is a generation, they're talking about a period in which, after all,